Hello and welcome to the Society with Fatma Shaheen at PTV World. Now, research suggests the fact that lifestyle changes could actually help the planet reduce emissions, that too by 70% by the year 2050. The question then is that how can sustainable lifestyle, how can sustainable living actually not only be beneficial for us as human beings, but also have a very positive impact on the environment and society at large. And this is something upon which we'll be shedding light today. We'll not only be talking about how generally have various Pakistani industries, be it the fashion industry or for that matter Pakistan's aesthetic industry, move towards adopting such practices, but we'll also be talking about the need for there to be effective laws and of course policies to that effect too. In this regard, we'll also be talking about the fact that why do we as a society still consider such sustainable choices to be something which is special that way? Why can we not normalize them? And this is something that we do see happening in other parts of the world. For this, what kind of societal attitude is it that we need to work upon? All of this today, that too with a very eminent panel. Let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for today's show is Ms. Nazifa Bhatt, who's an environmentalist. She's also the Senior Manager of Climate and Energy Program WWF Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alongside her, I have Dr. Kamran Qureshi, who's an aesthetic dermatologist. He's also a health policy expert. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. And my third panelist for today's show is Ms. Minahil Ahmed, who's a fashion designer. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show. To start the conversation with you, Ms. Nazifa, first things first. Now, we do understand that in ways more than one, various environmental challenges, more particularly the climate crisis, it does impact public health. But considering that, yes, you have had extensive experience of working on plastics and recycling of the same too, how do you feel can a lack of proper waste management actually impact one's health and in that way also contribute towards the disease burden?
I think plastics and recycling industry is a booming industry in Pakistan, but the poorly managed waste is also another issue that is causing pollution. Still, as we talk today, there would be burning of garbage going on in many cities in Pakistan, first of all. So that is also, leading to air pollution. And then the people and the scavengers and the waste collectors who are working there, of course, are suffering with immense health problems, be it skin care, be it their diseases in terms of respiratory disorders, their cuts and sharps. That is another story. It's a very long story. But unfortunately, there is lack of awareness and lack of equipment that is required to actually sustainably manage these.
And also, I feel as an objective bystander, correct me if I'm wrong, it's also lack of priority somewhere too, because we've become so used to not, actually addressing this issue that we've become complacent with it as well.
Yes, of course. Of course, definitely.
Right. On which I'll come to you, sir, and here we must also talk about how we as a society, more particularly when it comes to the Pakistani aesthetic industry, have been able to or not been able to, for that matter, move towards sustainability. Now, in the West, if you were to make a comparison, we understand the fact if somebody is selling a skincare product, then they are very happy to advertise the fact that yes, this is something which is environmental friendly. In Pakistan, do we see that happening? What are the latest trends that you see in this regard?
This is my exact question which I always ask when people are coming and promoting products to us as well, that where is it manufactured? What are the different measures that have been taken towards a sustainable and environment-friendly way of manufacturing things? Organic or chemicals, whatever it is, it has to come from an industry which has taken all the measures as far as environmental sustainability is concerned.
Right.
Now, with the social media, with everything being in the access of the customer directly, so it is a direct selling mechanism which has developed over the recent past, and most of the things are being sold online.
Right.
And most of the people who are there, they're not educated enough that they can understand what are the long-term consequences of these things. As human nature, if you look at the whole history of mankind, you will see that we've created problems first and then we have started addressing those problems. Whether it be the ozone hole, whether it be the air pollution, whether it was the fridge which was being used, that CFC and all that, and then coming back and then disposing those things off from the developed world into the underdeveloped or the
Right.
developing
Developing
countries,
part of
and
the
then
world, yes.
it becomes a problem with the developing countries or the underdeveloped countries, and then we start addressing those.
But sir, the thing is, environment is something which we all mutually share. This is something that will impact all of us, perhaps more to the developing countries as opposed to the developed world. But when we do talk about the changing trends, that over a period of time, from the viewpoint of a consumer, there has been a general shift in people perhaps opting for more natural and organic beauty and skincare products. Do you not feel the same?
See, there was a time when there was a cocktail of 3 creams. I wouldn't name the creams because
Right.
people will start going towards that and starting using those creams for the instant whitening. And it was a very popular regime which was used in salons and a lot of other places. And instantly you used to get white. So the thing is that today we are aware of the fact, we know that mercury is not good for skincare products to be used, and most of the companies are claiming that these are mercury free. Is there a measure for seeing that whether it is really mercury free or
Right.
not? They want magic to happen. And when they want magic, they don't think about most of the things because the social pressures
Are so much.
now whitening
That's
is such
so
a big
true.
pressure
Right.
that they would go to any extent to buy even a 50 rupees product,
Which is full
or-
of chemicals,
which is full of
extremely harmful
chemicals.
for the
Yeah.
environment too.
So, and price again is not a criteria for the safety of something. It may
Right.
be 50 rupees and it may be safe, and maybe 5,000 rupees and it may not be safe.
Right. But then
So-
we also see, respectfully, I would also want to beg to differ from you here, Dr. because we also see that at some point, yes, that obsession with fair skin is there. But then at the other quarters, we also see there have been celebrities who've actually emerged to be beautiful in their own dark skin. So we do understand the fact that, yes, there is a time that Pakistani society is positively moving away from those typical beauty stereotypes.
Again, I will say that there are models and there are actors whom are quoted in our clinics that, look, he used to be so dark. How is he white? I wouldn't name them, but there
Right.
a lot of examples are quoted in our clinic that they used to be so dark. How have they become so white? We would try to tell them that no, this is the camera, the lights, whatever. They
So
don't agree.
again, to reiterate your point, it goes back to the typical societal pressures,
Societal
sir.
pressures,
Moving
yes.
towards you, building on from where Doc Saab left. So when we do talk about those typical societal pressures, how do they actually kick in when it comes to determining that how cognizant, how aware, how environmental friendly is the Pakistan's fashion industry? Because a fashion doesn't exist in isolation either. Fashion has evolved to be what it is over a period of time. We as a nation take pride in our fashion industry,
True.
but the question then is that how sustainable is it?
Well, as Dr. Saab discussed about the societal pressure, if you talk about sizing as well in fashion industry, people want to go for petite sizes, and that is one of the reasons they're not focusing on the body in itself. If we as a brand are making any clothing, we tend to make small, medium or medium large. Our sizes are in a way free sizes, you know. So anyone feels good when they wear it. But it's the society. Even if right now, if we talk about all these marriage proposals and everything, I think
True.
that's one of the places where
But
all
then you
these
see,
things are discussed.
I feel that's right for the
Yeah.
majority part. I would agree with you, but I would also disagree because then again we do see quite a few actresses who do not fit into the typical ideal Pakistani body
True.
weight and body type, and they are still considered to be beautiful.
But that's a very small amount.
But moving on, another angle which I would want to put to you is the fact that over a period of time, we have seen more and more designers being very cognizant with regards to the fabrics they use, with regards to the suppliers who actually supply all those materials to them. So as a fashion designer, that too as a young one, how do you see us moving towards more sustainable practices in the fashion industry?
Where a lot of people like me and a lot of bigger brands who have been in the market for a very long time, as we were discussing earlier, they've started focusing on sustainability. I also have seen a lot of brands locally producing stuff. They have transparency. They have, they're looking after their labor as well in that fact.
Right.
So they're focusing on sustainability in a lot of ways.
In ways more than one, basically.
Yeah.
And then there are those as well who actually don't engage children so as to work for them, because child labor,
Yeah.
as we all understand, is also a very important part of this entire debate, because there have been brands on which there have been allegations that they must not be resorting to the same if
True.
they want to promote sustainability. But coming towards you, Nazifa, I would want you to comment on this further. When we do talk about addressing all these environmental challenges, when we do talk about more particularly addressing air pollution and smog, which Lahore witnesses every winter. So what is it that we can do in our own respective lifestyles so as to reduce the carbon footprint?
Okay, so first of all, there are 2-3 things. At the moment, as we talk, I think the air quality of Lahore is not really good at the moment. Also, the average has been about 94, and that is huge. And before this discussion, we were having this conversation that, you know, smog has always been there. It's only visible in October, November, December.
In the winter time.
Yes, because there's less wind, and therefore the cold temperature, of course, condenses every pollutant here together. But I think there's a lot that we can do on our own. The first thing is the traffic, because you see, it's about 43% traffic that is responsible for air pollution.
That is contributing to air pollution.
In Punjab
True.
specifically. And so we need
brick
to...
kilns.
Yes, brick kilns as well. And then the crop stubble burning, which I was mentioning earlier also, that, you know, while traveling to all those through rice paddies, I found out that, you know, they were still burning it. I mean, there's so many FIRs that the government of Punjab is doing. I mean, there's so many efforts that the government is making. But I think there is a huge room for improvement as well.
And
even
also
now.
room for improvement with regards to our own respective
Yes,
lifestyles.
yes,
too.
exactly.
Because you see, all these issues that you have pinpointed, they are the bigger glaring issues.
Yes,
What about the
definitely.
things that we do?
Yes,
Like, for
of course.
example, not saving electricity,
Yes, exactly.
not saving water, not switching for that matter to renewable sources of energy. So these are the little changes that we can actually do so as to make a big difference.
Definitely.
Dr. Saab, coming towards you, sir, we must also talk about the dangers of the aesthetic industry in Pakistan, because we do see that this obsession with using more and more aesthetic procedures that has been growing over a period of time, that too particularly because of social media, because everybody is so focused on having that ideal body weight, ideal body type. But having said that, how is it that we can combat the dangers of the same, to that too keeping in mind this entire debate of environment and sustainability?
First of all, see, I always try to educate people and tell them that, look here, what you see on the social media is what we want you to see. It's not what actually is happening. I'll be only posting about that thing of mine which has come out very nicely. I will not be discussing about the 99 other cases which are there. So the thing is, that creates a pressure on the people. There is an abuse of thing which starts happening and which in the end of the day is not only hurting the person himself but the environment, because your main topic we are discussing about the environment sustainability. So that is hurting the environment, because the more the products are being used, the more the problems
wastage,
are, the wastage
the more
is.
the cosmetic
See,
packaging is being
if
wasted.
you look
How
at the
do you
packaging,
basically decompose that? Yes.
Yes, look at the packaging. That is plastic basically. Plastic or whatever is the material which is being used, and we are not even looking at it whether it is environment friendly or not.
Right.
And then when people are using all these products and everything, now glass is a separate thing, these plastic ones are separate things. I still say that glass would be the best possible option, which can be reused also and can be more environment friendly.
Right.
So the issue is that abuse of these procedures is going on.
That's very rightly put by yourself, Dr. Saab, but taking on from where you left, a very important angle, we do intend to make overall the aesthetic clinics more sustainable. How do we then also ensure the fact that the products that are actually being used, be it for Botox, fillers or any other treatments, they are also sustainable per se?
See, the first thing that which we can do is that we have to see where this company or this product is coming from. One, is it registered or not registered? Two, and the third thing is that what are the long-term clinical trials that are available to us? Because our whole thing is basically evidence-based. And in medicine, until unless I have a clinical evidence of something, I cannot say something for sure. The whole principle of medicine is based on just one thing, and that is first do no harm. And this is where the crux of everything is. If we follow small little things, we can do that.
Right.
But if we think about the commercial angles of things, then we won't be able to
Right.
do anything at all.
So you need to be able to think about the greater good that way. Minahil, but in this regard, we must also consider the fact that fashion designers like yourself have an extremely important role to play here as well, because until and unless you educate your prospective consumer about the need to opt for sustainable choices, why would they do the same? Because this is something that we do see happening in other parts of the world. If somebody is selling a sustainable piece of clothing, or for that matter, even a sustainable beauty care or skin care product, they would want to advertise it because they feel that yes, this is definitely a win-win, not only for themselves, for their own company, but also for the consumer.
You're definitely right about that. We really need to educate our consumers, and currently we are doing that through our products as well, and packaging. If you see my products, I have the seed paper as a thank you note. You can plant that and it's going to be part of your garden, you know. And then we're not using plastics at all. We're using paper to pack all our products. So we are trying to educate our clients in a way that we need to go towards sustainability. But at the same time, if you talk about marketing, I think internationally there are a lot of brands who are focusing on sustainability in a way that they tend to give after sale services. If the person does not like it, they can bring it back. It can be consumed by any other
That's so
person,
true.
you know. And there are bins where you can place your jeans and all those materials which can be recycled and made into another product.
Right. And in this regard, then it's very important that we also focus upon using rented, or for that matter, second-hand clothes, because like we all understand, in countries like America, we do see this concept of vintage shops where people are very open to using such clothing too, on which I'll come to you. Hey, we must talk about the role of the media, and this is something which she very rightly so mentioned, that yes, we need to educate the consumer out there. So having worked with WWF, having worked with, of course, the government too, because I understand that you do quite a few collaborations. What can be the role of media here, Nazifa, be it the electronic media, be it the print media, or even for that matter, the social media?
I think it has to be a collaborative effort. The media is the medium to, you know, convey the message. But I think the government, private sector, and when I talk about private sector in general public, it is the celebrities. It is also the companies, the businesses who need to come forward, designers as well. Because if you're talking about changing lifestyles and habits, why don't you know, broadcast it first?
You take
know?
lead in that
So, you know,
way.
when, as you mentioned, models, you know, models in their own colors, they are looking beautiful.
Exactly.
And carrying them like anything. So, you know, if we see that on the media, that is what we're going to adopt. Dr. Saab mentioned about, you know, plantation and, you know, cut down on paper usage. So, if that is going to be promoted through these media channels, only then we can, you know, have an expectation that the public is also going to follow that. And then the mindset is going to change, of course.
Right. Right. So, but when we do talk about this, at least to the extent of dramas too, because we see that Pakistani dramas are being made on so many social issues. So why not work towards actually advocating for climate change, for having a more sustainable lifestyle? So I feel the electronic media here, that also has a very important role to
Definitely.
play.
Dramas play a very, very important role, not only in changing the behaviors and mindsets of Pakistanis, but also people living abroad.
True.
Because, you know, every channel is making amazing social issues, dramas. And I think we should focus on, you know, these little issues as well, saving water, saving energy,
Exactly.
educating children, and, you know, making sure that getting fair is not important. Being a healthy person and having a healthy body is more important.
But when we talk about this from the viewpoint of policies, what kind of policies do we actually have in place? Because we do understand that Pakistan has a national conservation strategy. Then in 2012, we also had this national protection policy overall as well. And then we understand that environment as it is a provincial subject now, moreover after the 18th Amendment.
Yes.
But when it comes to having those substantive policy proposals and then implementing the same, to what extent is sustainability taken care of? Because environment, as we all understand, is a very broad, all-encompassing subject.
Definitely. I think the federal government as well as the provincial governments, they have tried their best to actually create that legislation on climate change, definitely. Especially revising the NDCs, which is the Nationally Determined Contributions, which was submitted in 2021 by Government of Pakistan to the UNFCCC. I think that was a, you know, game changer for Pakistan, because now we have a target to cut down on the carbon emissions. So the industries, the private sector, the public sector, they have to come together sector to, comply to those policies and those targets. And then we have made, as you mentioned, couple of policies. We also have the National Climate Change Policy.
Right.
There are many policies in Punjab also, like the smog policy of 2017, which WWF has been a part of in the making. So I think the policies are there, but the effective
implementation
is missing.
That's so true.
And for that, the public and the private sector has to come together. It's not only the government who can just roam around with the stick.
Right. And I think it's too unfair a burden to place on the state as well. And here, even healthcare professionals like him, they have a very important role to play too, at least to the extent that they are interacting with the public too, sir. So you would agree with me on that, because when we talk about laws and policies, a very important part of today's debate is also regulation of aesthetic medicine too. And this is something that you were earlier discussing as well, that we understand that in the Middle East, more particularly in Dubai, we do have very stringent laws and policies to that effect. So how can we then use laws and policies to give people that foundation, or for that matter, that strength to resort to sustainable practices in aesthetic medicine?
Fatma, I'll partly agree and partly disagree with the whole thing. I'll be a little more critical on the thing. Making a policy is one thing. Implementing the policy is the second thing, and is as important as making the policy. What we are lacking here is implementation of policies. What we are lacking here is regulators. Regulators, yes, you need a stick. And if the regulator is strict, only then you will be following all rules and regulations.
So the regulation then of aesthetic medicine needs to be strict. That's what I'm saying. Not only of aesthetic medicine, but of healthcare professionals generally in the country.
Yes, for everything.
For everything,
I'm not talking about just healthcare. It is about everything which we are talking about. Now, if we talk about healthcare and aesthetics in particular, we don't have any policies. We don't even know who the person whom we are going to is a doctor or is not a doctor. Recently, everyone is a doctor. Even if you have done a physiotherapy, you are a doctor in physiotherapy, you write a doctor with yourself. You've done something in nutrition, you write a doctor with yourself. Pharmacist writes a doctor with himself. So do they give a disclaimer that I'm not a medical doctor? So the term here is I'm a medical doctor. Someone else is a pharmacist. Now, the problem is that whenever these policies and things are being made, who is deciding that? There are no stakeholders from the public. And this is what I would be saying, that when we talk about environmental things also, we need stakeholders from the community.
That's
and
what I
when these community
exactly.
stakeholders will be there.
True. Because when we do talk about addressing these concerns by striving to make the profession more sustainable that way, which is generally for the greater good of the society and the country at large, we do need an accurate reflection of the same in our laws and policies too. So going back to that, perhaps laws and policies can be a good starting point, but with that we also need an effective will to implement the same. And for that, societal attitudes, those are extremely important. Minail, coming towards you, you want to add something here. When we do talk about this from the viewpoint of fashion industry, which you are representing today on the show, how do you feel has the fashion industry evolved to be not only sustainable but also more affordable and accessible? Because if you were to study, then you see all these things are interlinked. If something is more accessible, if something is definitely more affordable, there could be a chance that it is also perhaps more sustainable.
Well, side by side, as to focusing on materials, you can also focus on how, from where those things are coming from, and then the labor factor. We can focus on all the small scale industries, all these women sitting at houses and then focusing on just the domestic work only. They can be educated about the skills, and all those skills can be incorporated in your small businesses as well.
True.
So I know a few bags that are produced here, that are designed in a way that you incorporate embroidery and all those things on those, and then they are sold at a very good price in international market.
True. So basically then this is also in a very direct way empowering not only those women but also adding to the economy too, because this is a very important part of this skill development program too.
Yeah, I know a few designers who are designing in a way that you have these shalwar kameez from the 90s collection and all that. That is sustainable. That is going on for a very long time, and then you can bring in all those materials and all those design things in your collections as well. So if one designer is working on it, or one of the brands brands is working on it, I think everyone can have that practice in their business as well.
Right, Minahil. On which I'll come to you, Ms. Nazifa, and here we must talk about sustainable agricultural practices, which at a very basic level do relate with not one, rather various environmental issues, be it climate change or for that matter any other issue. So for the benefit of the audience, could you tell us that how do all these issues correlate and how do they in turn actually impact our health?
So Fatma, there's a very strong linkage between agriculture, food and our health, of course, because whatever we are eating is going to impact us. Right now, the kind of food that we're producing locally, being an agri-based country, there's a lot of pesticides that we're using. There is a lot of fertilizers in order to yield more crops. We're doing that. So indirectly, we are consuming that food and fruits. What are we doing to our health? And then we're talking about sustainable lifestyles. I think what we preach is to be done on ground also. We're talking here, but I think people who are in the business of agriculture, they need to make sure that we need to go a little more organic rather than, relying
Just revert to perhaps organic farming or regenerating farming.
Just like regen, because that is the new concept. There is organic cotton being grown in Pakistan now. That's the new trend. Why not we start it with other crops as well, other food crops as well, which are actually as part of our food chain.
Right. So basically then the change is something which should come from not one, rather several quarters.
Yes,
because
definitely.
you see the entire society then is involved. We do need policies to that effect. We do need media awareness campaigns.
Definitely.
Then we also need people like Dr. Saab and then of course people like Minahil to do their bit as well in the respective professions that they belong to. But Dr. Saab, when we talk about overall comparing Pakistan with the rest of the world, and I'm putting this question to you because I know that you worked in the UK. Right now you travel to and fro to Dubai, and of course you're also based in Pakistan. Which end of the spectrum do we actually fall in when it comes to adopting sustainability overall in the healthcare industry, just not limited to aesthetic medicine?
I would say that we are at the bottom of the spectrum right now. And then there are a lot of countries at the bottom of the spectrum. Again, I will reiterate the same point which I made earlier, policies, implementation of policies, that is perhaps one of the most important thing here. If we look at healthcare, again, what we are doing is we are having those commercial gains are far more important to us. And that is not true for healthcare alone, it is true for everywhere.
True.
Like she was talking about the organic things. Now the thing is, looking at the population that we have, looking at the population of the world, is organic a solution to that? So we have to start working on things where we can mass produce things, and that is where we get carried away with all the things. See? So the same is in, and when I talk about particularly about the industry in which I'm working currently, the aesthetic industry, it is a you can say totally not in control. There are no legislations. Everyone and anyone can practice. So these are the things which we need to control. People need to be made aware and made aware of their rights, and then they should be educated enough not to use it or abuse it, but to use it for their own good, basically.
Right. So awareness and then of course effective implementation, that is the takeaway. On which I'll come to you, Ms. Minahil, and here we must talk about slow fashion. Slow fashion, as we all understand, was that takeaway post COVID-19. So do you not feel that yes, it is time that we actually revive that tradition as well? Because if we welcome slow fashion, saying goodbye to fast fashion, that in itself will also help us actually achieve more sustainability in the fashion industry.
Well, definitely. I think there are a lot of influential people talking about reducing fast fashion. There are designers who are talking about it, but I think implementation is very much important. People are talking about it, but they're not implementing. You preach, but you don't practice. So I think if you talk about sustainability and you talk about slow fashion, the society plays an important role. Are they ready to accept it or not? Because people in the fashion industry or in any other industry, they're introducing all these things. So it's like a whole circle.
But you see, I do feel that there are some quarters of the Pakistani society who are slowly moving towards it. We do see people repeating clothes. It has become a norm. Even on occasions like Eid, then we also see celebrities having very minimalistic weddings too. They aren't adding to the environment pollution cost too. So slowly and gradually, even if it is in a very certain part of the Pakistani society, we do see that change happening. Perhaps it should be more of such change should happen. It should be more of a general rule as opposed to an exception. But we can't deny that this change is happening.
It is happening, and that's because the people are marketing it in that way. The influential people, all these brands, all these people are marketing and encouraging that, oh, that celebrity wore that thing on their wedding and then they're using it in a different event, you know. They are marketing in a way that people have started accepting it. That is one of the reasons. So that's the whole thing. It's a cycle. Everyone has to play their part. The influential people, whatever they're preaching, they're practicing. The people who are marketing are actually encouraging people to empower them that you can use all those things. Or even if you don't want to use those things, you can pass down to your staff or even your family or your friends in a way that they can use it or otherwise donate it to people. I think donations in Pakistan have been a bigger...
of course, we are a very charitable nation by that virtue. But then you see people who are in that position of power, be it celebrities, be it actresses, if they are setting these precedents, then it will definitely trigger more motivation from the common man out there so as to follow lead. On which I'll come to you, Ms. Nazifa, and before we conclude today's show. So how do you then propose can we actually work towards reviving that entire concept of nature therapy and natural therapy back into our lives? Because we do understand that yes, this is that one kind of therapy which is extremely beneficial not only for our physical health but also for our mental health too.
We are sitting in the heart of Pakistan, Lahore, and I think it's an urban jungle. Over the past 10 years, I think there are just buildings and infrastructure and underpasses, and there's less greenery left. So I think firstly greening the urban spaces, that is the first thing, and then making sure that even in the vertical architecture you should use greening. So vertical farming and rooftop gardening, that is something that is practiced all over the world, especially in the Far East. And I think that is something that we can do. Also, you know, indoor plantation is really important, not only to make it look appealing and, you know, pleasant, but also it is going to improve your air quality, the indoor air quality, and making sure that you're feeling good and your mental and the physical health is much better than that.
Right. And that too, especially in a society like ours where we don't have many options so as to go out and you just have a recreation.
Yes,
right.
Definitely.
Sir, coming towards you, and before we conclude today's show, so what would be the future of sustainable aesthetic medicine or medicine generally when it's trying to at least strive to make the healthcare profession more sustainable?
Talking about the sharps, we spread a lot of communicable diseases through these sharps and everything, and then somebody realized that no, look here, these sharps need to be disposed of properly. So I again say, one thing is awareness from within inside. I may be following a lot of, I won't say I cannot follow 100%, but I may be following a lot of things in my clinic, but I'm doing that because the awareness is coming from inside me.
True.
Or maybe I've been exposed to the Western world, so that is why I'm doing it. So we need to educate.
Right, sir, your point is noted. On which I'll come to Ms. Minahil, and here we must talk about the very pivotal role of the education system too, more particularly when it comes to educating the younger people, the younger children, so as to be more environmental conscious, especially with regards to the various lifestyle choices that they do make. So how do you propose can we make the education system more inclusive of such concerns?
Well, as we mentioned before, whatever you were preaching, you should practice as well.
True.
The education system has been educating us about the problems we'll be facing in the future, about ozone layer and all those stuff. I think textbooks have been filled with all those examples, and the pictures that we used to see, how the future will look like, all the global warming and all that stuff, we're experiencing it now.
True.
So the education system has been educating everyone for a very long time, but we have not been practicing. So the practicing part comes on the educators, on parents, because whatever you're teaching your child needs to be practiced in front of them so that they adapt to that as well.
Right. So this would also encompass, by what you are saying, the parents' education.
How you can make it practical, planting trees, how you can make their education projects sustainable by incorporating all those materials in a way, ask them to recycle their stuff for their projects, for anything of that sort, because education comes from house and from school both ways. They're focusing on recycling things and they're making all those products with recyclable waste. And recently they had a practical exhibition where they incorporated, they actually asked the children to come in, plant those trees in those recyclable pots, which was very innovative, and it was somewhat educating the kids as well and parents, and then bringing in the practicality.
And that's very right, because we also see a lot of young teenagers, very active climate change activists like Greta Thunberg leading such climate change movements. So yes, this is the right age to educate everybody, because the young people are the future generation. They are the future of the country. On which note, I would like to conclude today's show. Thank you so much, Ms. Nazifa. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. And thank you so much, Minahil, for your time today. Well, to conclude today's show, we generally spoke about the changing trends with regards to beauty, skincare products, with regards to aesthetic medicine, with regards to the fashion industry per se, more with regards to the fact that, how are they over a period of time embracing sustainability with regards to, various choices. The positive thing which has emerged in the Pakistani society is that generally, yes, we do see sustainability gaining momentum, but the question then remains that is it or is it not equally attractive? Is it or is it not equally accessible? And is it or is it not equally affordable too? For us to ensure that yes, as a society we do embrace sustainability in the larger picture, what we need to ensure is that people are educated about the importance of the same. And for this, of course, the Pakistani media has an extremely important role to play. Thank you for watching The Society. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.